say it 100 times. We're the only country in the world that goes into a crisis, and when we come out of it, we're stronger than before we went in it. That's by building back better. We're going to build back better. We have to. We must. We will. Because that's who we are. That's what America is. On Labor Day, we honor the dignity of the American worker. And every day we remember that America wasn't built by Wall Street. They're not all bad folks on Wall Street. I'm not suggesting that. But they didn't build America. It was built by the middle class. And unions built the middle class. The reason we have is because of the victories won by labor. I'm going to be a bit repetitive. The 8-hour day, the weekend, time and a half for overtime, safety standards, sick days, victories for all of us. Because I might add, I notice when you all do that, everybody benefits. Whether they belong to a union or not. Whether they belong to a union or not. You can carve out your piece of the middle class and make it a possibility. That's what got taken away for a lot of people. Instead, some people started seeing the stock market and corporate profits and executive pay as the only measure for economic growth. By the way, the stock market's gone up exponentially since I've been president. You haven't heard me say a word about it. I'm glad it's gone up, no problem. The economy my administration is building, instead of workers competing with each other for the jobs that are scarce, everybody's mad at me because now, guess what? Employers are competing to attract workers, having to raise pay. No, I'm serious, think about it. That kind of competition in the market helps workers earn higher wages. It also gives them the power to demand dignity and respect in the workplace. Simply put, worker power is essential to building our economy back better than before. It's just that basic. To counter corporate power, to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. I'm so tired of trickle down. I ask, when has the middle class done better that the wealthy haven't done incredibly well? I can't think of a time that when the middle class is booming and moving, everybody does well. And to give workers even more power, I also signed an executive order to improve competition in the economy, including calling for a ban on non-compete agreements that deny workers the right to change the job in the same field, even when there's no real reason for a company to stop them. It's all about suppressing wages. That's what it was about. When I came to office, our first job was to stop the economic bleeding, and it was the worst bleeding since Roosevelt. We passed the American Rescue Plan. That delivered shots in arms and checks in pockets and provided that extra breathing room for working families. It helped state and cities keep essential workers on the job, including educators, police officers, firefighters, sanitation workers. The next stop is dealing with the ability to pass the rest of my Build Back Better agenda. Once-in-a-generation investments in our people, making housing more affordable, bringing down the cost of prescription drugs by giving Medicare the power to negotiate for lower prices. And you ought to thank Bernie Sanders for a lot of this. Making elder care and child care more affordable while improving the pay for home care workers and child care workers. Providing paid family leave and medical leave so that no worker is forced to choose between their job and their caregiving responsibilities. You've all fought for all these things. We got to make them available everywhere. Provide 2 years of free university high-quality pre-K and high-quality pre-K 2 years that are needed. It shows that if you send a kid to school at age 3, 4, and 5, they increase by 56% the possibility of, no matter what the background, that they'll go through school all 12 years and do well. Our economy has added 750,000 jobs a month on average during the past 3 months since I've been here. There are more than 4 million jobs since I took office. In the first half of this year, our economy grew fast at a fastest rate in 40 years. Unemployment is down. My Build Back Better investments are going to allow us to keep and progress and move further in the years to come.
Hundreds of journalists and other employees at the New York Times began a 24-hour walkout today. Newsroom employees and other members of the News Guild of New York said that they are fed up with bargaining that has dragged on since their last contract expired in March of 2021. The negotiations took place Tuesday and some of Wednesday, but the sides remained far apart on issues like wage increases and remote work policies. A spokesperson for the Times says that the paper has contingency plans to keep operating without disruptions.
Meantime, thousands of Swissport USA airport workers at major hubs, including Newark, Chicago, and Boston, are striking to protest unfair labor practices, also demanding higher pay. This includes janitors, security guards, and baggage handlers, along with many other service employees. Service Employees International Union President Mary Kay Henry, which represents these workers, is with us this morning, and it's always good to see you, Mary Kay. Just right off the bat, I was a little bit on both sides of the recent rail situation. I'd love to hear your comments on that. You finally get into a position where you've got some real bargaining power for whatever reason, and suddenly it's like the rules get, the goalpost gets moved, the change. Oh well, this is so important for what $2 billion a day. We heard all of the reasons, but were you okay when the administration and Congress steps in to basically shut that strike down? Or what would have been a threat?
I don't think the White House or Congress was the problem. I think the rail companies had an obligation, given their record profits, to address the issue of sick pay and time off to be able to get to doctor's appointments. And just like what the airport service workers are doing today and what you said about the New York Times, you can see that workers everywhere, all across the economy, are fed up with the status quo and want to have companies address unsafe working conditions and pay.
I guess I'm not sure you really weighed in on whether you thought what was done was appropriate or not. And I guess my point was we've seen tough days for unions time and again over the past couple of decades, and we've seen membership fall, and there haven't been a lot of wins and bright spots. So, as I said, for whatever reason, this is a kind of a worker. They've got some power now. It's a worker, not an employer economy right now, and when it starts going that way, then the government steps in. Do you wish that had not happened?
Well, I think the government demonstrated in this case that collective bargaining was working. They used the emergency provision in the Railway Labor Act to try and bring the parties together and solve the problem. But I actually think this is an incredible moment for unions and for working people that are winning all across the economy, We just had airport service workers and rail workers get us through a 2-year pandemic to keep the country running. And now it's time for major corporations in this country to invest in the essential workers that are trying to keep the economy moving. And today, Black and brown and immigrant service workers in dozens of airports are backing the demands of those 3 hubs that you said were on strike, to insist that these workers get respected, protected, and paid on the job.
Do you feel any sense of frustration when we see an economic report, whether it's on a Friday and we see a jobs report and we see wages actually rising, and it's like, oh no, the wages, they're way too hot. This means the Fed, that's going to be on the Fed's radar screen. They're going to have to go further than we thought. This is going to make the Fed much harder. That's going to be bad. That's going to increase demand. When you see that, it's kind of counter to what you would think a country would want.
Well, I don't think the problem is that wages are too high. I think that we are finally in a situation where minimum wages have gone up over the past 10 years in key parts of the country. We experienced worker shortages coming out of the pandemic, and wages got higher because employers wanted to fill those jobs. The key question is, no matter what the state of the economy is, are people going to earn enough to be able to provide for their families and expect that they can have a secure future? And that's what today's strikes are about in those 3 hubs, and that dozens of other airport workers are joining together. They are rejecting the status quo and saying we have to be paid living wages, get health care and protections on the job.